Hello, good evening and welcome everybody. It's really good to see so many people here tonight on this call. My name's Steve Squibbs. I am the convener of Southampton Stand Up to Racism, and this meeting has been jointly called with Southampton Stand Up to Racism and the Chinese Association of Southampton. And I think we all know the reasons why we've had to call this meeting. We all know about the horrific racist attack that was perpetrated against Dr Wang on Tuesday of last week, an attack that happened whilst he was out jogging in broad daylight in the Woolston area of the city by a cowardly group of racist thugs who set upon Dr Wang, punched him, kicked him, beat him to the ground so badly that he needed to be taken to hospital in Southampton. An absolutely abhorrent attack. And obviously, I think that's reflected in the turnout for this meeting tonight. And like I said, I'm really glad that everybody's been able to join us. I'm pleased to report that Dr. Wang is recovering well. And I'm also pleased to say that he's joining us tonight as a guest speaker. So welcome, Dr. Wang. We've got a really broad range of speakers for the meeting tonight. From Southampton and elsewhere, and I think that reflects really the widespread revulsion about this attack, but also the determination that racism and racist violence is not allowed to go unchallenged, that we are the racist majority in this city, in this country, and we will stand up to racism. And I hope that this meeting is not just about a response to an individual incident, because we know that racism is far more than that. We know that racism is a real threat, it's a growing threat in our society. So I really hope that tonight's meeting could be a step towards building the kind of broad, united, anti-racist movement that we need to see in Southampton to beat back the racists and to defeat racism. So before we start, I've got just one or two items of housekeeping just to run through, and I hope you'll just bear with me while I do that. The first is just that the guest speakers that we have tonight, like I said, we have got quite a lot of guest speakers and there are a lot of people on the call. It'd be really helpful if you could just raise your virtual hand, which is going to help our host, Joe, who's doing the admin on the meeting, to identify you. Okay, perfect. Because we've got a lot of speakers, I'm also going to ask our guest speakers to try and keep their comments to 4 minutes. I know that may be hard, but obviously we do have a lot of people, and I do want to give the opportunity for other people other than the guest speakers to contribute to the meeting, to talk about their experiences and to discuss how we can build the kind of anti-racist movement that we need, like I said, to defeat racism. So I would encourage you to speak once we've heard from the guest speakers. You will have to be unmuted. You won't be able to unmute yourself. Just because of the meeting of this size, it just helps to keep people on mute so we don't get any background noise. I'd just also like to remind people that there is obviously an ongoing police investigation into the attack on Dr. Wang, and just to remind you not to say anything that could be prejudicial to that case. If you do have information that could be useful, I'd like you to share that with the Hampshire Police. We do have a representative from Hampshire Police at the meeting tonight, and I'm sure that they'll be more than happy to answer your questions. But just a reminder that not to say anything, like I said, that could be prejudicial to the prosecution of that case. And just a final notice that this meeting is being recorded. We have had quite a lot of interest from the news media, from the BBC, from the ITV, who have asked us to record the meeting and shown interest in showing clips of the meeting via their networks tomorrow. Obviously, if you don't want to be recorded, then I suggest that you turn your camera off. The meeting will only record people who are actually speaking. But if you want to be certain that you don't want to be recorded, then please do turn your camera off. Okay, so I think that's it for introductions. So I'm going to move now to the first of our guest speakers. And as I said, I'm really pleased that we could organise this joint meeting tonight with the Chinese Association of Southampton. And our first guest speaker is going to be Michael of the Chinese Association of Southampton. He is their chair. So welcome, Michael.
Hello, good evening to all of you. I'm very pleased that there are so many supports that we received since this incident. And your support to Dr. Wang is also a support to the Chinese Association of Southampton. It is also a support to the city itself. So we want to be the city of culture, and your support is very important. Southampton is a good city to live. I've lived here for 24 years. My son was born here 18 years ago. And this is a big city and a good city that we want to have all of you to live it together with a happy and harmonious life without being affected by the racism. And I'm very happy to see there are so many friends from across the country, from Liverpool and other cities where the Chinese Association, at least all the cities in the UK are basically worried about what happened because of the COVID-19. There are some prejudice against the Asian people. And I'm happy that all of you who are here are supportive to us. So your support to us means a lot, not only to the Chinese society, but also to the whole community in the UK, especially to Southampton. And I thank the organizer, Southampton stand up to racism. So we work together with all the different societies, and we want to make the society a better place to live. That's all from me. Thank you very much. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for those comments. Okay, so next we're going to hear from Dr. Wang himself. I'd just like to say, really just to pay tribute to Dr. Wang, because I think anybody who had gone through the kind of experience that Dr. Wang had gone through I think very many people, understandably, would have wanted to hide away after something like that had happened. But I think it's, like I said, I think it's testament to your courage and frankly, your bravery that you have spoken out about the attack, both to the media and that you're joining us tonight to talk about what happened. So, Dr. Wang, welcome.
Thank you, Steve, for moderating this this chat, and also thank you for Southampton stand against racism and Chinese Association of Southampton to organize this event. So I'm the victim, and but you can see that I'm recovering very well. So the officer actually told me that I was famous these days, but then actually I don't want to be famous in this way. So I would say this attack, at the attack and after it, there was one word jumped out of my head, that is civil. To attack innocent people, unknown people, for no reason is just not civil. But however, after the attack, I was very grateful that I received immediate support, help from different people, from strangers. Not only they called the ambulance and but also they called the police. They helped me to remember the car plate of the suspects, and also the ambulance staff. They took me to the general hospital. So fortunately the injury was not very bad, and also for these several days I received a lot of support messages, mainly through emails. So they are everywhere, right? They are from my previous students, from inside the Southampton University, outside of Southampton University. So I would say that words can't describe how grateful I am to receive your support and messages. So I just want to say that if we say this, we must stand up to fight them on the spot immediately, because I don't think that they initially they wanted to attack me, right? So however I don't think it was the first time they verbally abuse people. I don't believe that. I believe they have done this several times. However, because most of people, because of I understand, I pretty understand, because of fear, because of worry about the future life, they don't resist. So that's why these sort of things they continue to happen. So UK is a civilized, is a developed society. I would say that just stand against them, and you will be supported and helped from the community, from the people around you. So once again, thank you very much for holding this solidarity event for me. I'm very grateful. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wang, and like many others, I'm sure they'll say that it's really good to see that you are recovering and that you are looking as well as you are. But thank you again for joining us tonight. Our next speaker is a speaker from Stand Up to Racism nationally. It's Brian Richardson, who's a long-time anti-racist activist, and we welcome him tonight.
Well, thanks very much for that kind introduction, Steve, and good evening, comrades and friends. I'm going to try and keep my contribution short. Unfortunately, I can't stay with you for the duration of the meeting as I have a prior speaking engagement. But let me begin by sending my sympathy and solidarity to Dr. Wang and your family for what must have been a truly frightening and traumatic experience. And let me also congratulate both yourself for speaking out and the organisers of the meeting for such a swift and imaginative response. It's not easy to do so, particularly in the times that we're currently living in, but to organise, as you have, both this meeting with so many participants, and I understand a hugely imaginative solidarity event that you're organising for tomorrow, is, I think, a magnificent response. Now, I'm sure that we were all shocked and horrified when we heard about what had happened to Dr. Wang. But sadly, I have to say that I was not surprised. Obviously, I don't know the specifics of what happened to you, Dr. Wang, and it would be remiss of me or anybody, of course, to say anything that might prejudice the ongoing investigation that's taking place. But speaking generally, I would say this, that when the most powerful political figure in the world, as Donald Trump was until just a few weeks ago as the president of the United States, he describes coronavirus as the China virus and explicitly says that China is to blame, it's hardly surprising that acts like that act as a catalyst for attacks upon Chinese people, or those who, in the eyes of the most ignorant people in society, look as if they may be Chinese, regardless of where they do actually come from. And I note, Dr. Wang, that you indicated that you yourself have seen an increase in racism against Chinese people since Trump used that vile term. And that is an observation that I think really is borne out by a whole number of studies and analyses. It's been confirmed in official reports. It's been confirmed in debates in Parliament, for example. It's been confirmed by a report by the Trades Union Congress. Indeed, I think that report suggested that there has been a 300% increase in online criticism and attacks, media, Twitter, Facebook, and so on, towards China and Chinese people. Now, online abuse is horrible enough, but again, it's hardly surprising that we've seen an increase in physical attacks when the likes of Trump are seen inciting their supporters to act in the way that we saw when far-right and fascist activists stormed the Capitol building in Washington at the beginning of January. That is the United States. But of course, as your experience, Dr. Wang, illustrates, we see echoes of it here in Britain as well. And when we have politicians and a government that has, again, explicitly created a hostile atmosphere for foreign migrants, an atmosphere that led to the Windrush scandal, which has denied so many people access to healthcare, social services, pensions, and so on, people who helped to rebuild Britain in the aftermath of the Second World War. And it is that environment, a specifically hostile environment, and I'm using not my original words, but the words of the then Home Secretary, Theresa May, subsequently the Prime Minister, a hostile environment towards foreign migrants created by our government, by our Home Office. It is hardly surprising that it leads to atrocities like you were subjected to last week. And it's precisely that environment that has, on a broader front, led to people from Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities suffering disproportionately from COVID-19. And it is an atmosphere that leads people who have a legitimate right to seek asylum on these shores, rotting in humane detention centres and refugee camps. Now, if what I've read is true, Dr. Wang, and I hope it's not true actually, but if it's true that you are considering leaving the country that has been the home to you and your family for, I understand, the last 6 years or so, that saddens me. Obviously, you know, that is your decision and a decision for you and your family. But it would sadden me if, as a result of what you experienced last week, you feel little option but to take that decision. And I think for the rest of us, there is a challenge to stand up to the racism that makes people feel that they are not welcome on those shores. And it's something that I think should be done in conjunction with all of our communities, not something that should be done on behalf of our communities. And that is why I think the broad coalition of people that are gathered here on this call this evening is all at such short notice is all the more impressive, because we shouldn't see people simply as being victims. By speaking out as you have done, Dr. Wang, you have shown that you're not somebody who's going to simply lie down and be a victim, but you're going to stand up for what is your right and your entitlement and what you believe in. And I say that as someone who is particularly passionate about it, because I myself am the son of parents who came to this country as part of the Windrush generation, the generation of Caribbean migrants who they themselves, when they came here in the aftermath of the Second World War, they were faced with a hostile environment. They were met with signs saying no blacks, no dogs, no Irish when they went to seek accommodation. And they fought for their acceptance. They fought for their right to be treated with respect and dignity in this country. And it was the support and solidarity that they fought for and won from their neighbours, their workmates and friends that made a difference and created the opportunities for those of us like me who were born and brought up here to have a better life and take advantage of the opportunities that they created for us. And let me begin to wind up by saying this, that Stand Up to Racism is proud of our history of doing precisely what it says in our name, standing up to racism, as we have done over the last 6 or 7 years that we've been in existence. And amongst the things that we've done, we've supported the rights of refugees and asylum seekers to come to Britain. We have opposed the rise of violent, thuggish, racist groups like the English Defence League and the Football Lads Alliance. But we know that there cannot be any room for complacency, and that is why we have to continue to stand up and organise against all forms of racism, including as Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. And Steve, let me finish therefore by saying this, that every year since we were established, we have organised on the the third weekend in March, a national demonstration. And that weekend is significant because it was established by the United Nations as, to give it its official title, the International Day for the Elimination of Racism and Discrimination. And it was established on that day to commemorate the Sharpeville massacres in apartheid South Africa in 1960. We chose that weekend and have held demonstrations on that weekend because we know, and what you experienced, Dr. Wang, is a vicious and brutal indication that racism is not a thing of the past, something that we could, simply commemorate, but it is something that we have to continue to campaign and organize against in the here and now. Last year, because of the pandemic, was the only year since our establishment that we haven't been able to organise a national demonstration of that type. And who knows, given the situation that we're still living in, whether we'll be able to, what we will be able to organise this year. Certainly, there won't be a big national demonstration, but we are certainly encouraging people in every locality to organise events on whatever scale they consider appropriate. And I think it would be hugely important to see in Southampton events and activities that demonstrate our continuing commitment to ensure that we show that Southampton and every town, city and village in this country is a place that welcomes all of our communities. Steve, thanks again for inviting me to speak. Solidarity with you once again, Dr. Wang, and best wishes to all of you, both for the rest of this evening and for your events and activities in the weeks and months to come.
Thank you so much, Brian. Thank you. And I hope you saw there were lots of positive reactions to your comments there. In terms of the UN Anti-Racism Day that you highlighted at the end of your talk there will be an online event that's planned in Southampton, and I will be providing details of that a bit later on in the meeting. But I would certainly like to echo your other comments about the need to build a really broad and united anti-racist movement in this country and in our city. So thank you, Brian, once again for joining us tonight. Okay, our next speaker tonight is Jane Falkingham. Jane is one of the vice presidents at the University of Southampton, and obviously University of Southampton, where Dr. Wang is a lecturer himself. And we're really pleased that Jane is able to join us tonight. Jane.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me. I'd first of all like to have a personal message to Dr. Wang. As well as being the Vice President International at the university at the moment, I'm also the Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences. So Dr. Wang is a member of my faculty, and I'd just like to give my personal message of solidarity and support to you. I have a message from the Vice Chancellor that I'm going to just read out to you. This message is actually going to be published to all our staff and students tomorrow, and will be being translated into Chinese as well. Thank you very much, Song Uts, for the suggestion and the help in doing that. So this is a message from Professor Mark Smith, President and Vice Chancellor of the University. And he says, "I am shocked and saddened by this truly dreadful and inexcusable incident. Our university does not and will not tolerate violence or discrimination against any member of our community. We have a role to play in making all our staff, students and visitors feel welcome and safe. We are proud of Southampton's cultural diverse history, which is an important part of our city's identity. Southampton has long been noted for its friendliness, and incidents such as this one sadden us deeply. We wish to reaffirm that anyone who experiences a racist incident can confidentially report it with the expectation that it will be investigated and appropriate actions taken, including the involvement of the police if necessary. We have an inclusive culture free from discrimination and based on the values of dignity, courtesy and respect. And we recognise the right of every person to be treated in accordance with these values." That's the end of Professor Smith's statement, but I do want to just flag up to, because I know there are a number of our students and staff on this call, that prior to this terrible incident that Dr. Wang experienced, the university had already put in place jointly with SUSU, our Students' Union, a new reporting tool that will be going live. I think it is actually on Monday, March the 8th, where students and staff can inform us of any matters that they wish us to do so in a confidential way: bullying, hate crime, or sexual misconduct and harassment. So we are taking this really, really seriously. We are deeply committed to an inclusive society and an inclusive workplace. And once again, Dr. Wang, please take my personal comments of commitment to you. You can hear I'm a little bit hoarse at the moment, but I'm delighted to be here. And I'm delighted to see you looking so well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joan, for that messages and your comments as well. Thank you. And I think actually it would be appropriate at this point just to highlight a message that I received from the University of Southampton UCU branch earlier today. Unfortunately, they weren't able to send a speaker to the meeting tonight, but they did send the following message, which says that the University of Southampton UCU branch vehemently opposes racism in all its forms and is shocked and appalled by this horrifying attack on a member of our community. We extend our solidarity and support to Dr. Wang and his family at this awful time. Racists in our cities will not be tolerated, and we will stand against them. So that's really, really good to have the support of Southampton UCU. And like Jane said, I'm sure there are many of your colleagues who are on the call tonight, Dr. Wang. We also have Sue Atkins, who will be talking a little later on in the meeting about the importance of trade unions and their contribution towards the anti-racist struggle, both in Southampton and across the country. But at the moment, I'd like to move to our next speaker, who is Superintendent Kelly Whiting from Hampshire Police. And I believe Kelly's going to give us an update on the case and also information if people have any information to give relevant to the case. Thank you, Kelly.
Well, may I first start by saying thank you for inviting me to speak tonight. I'm just back from annual leave today, and I was shocked, saddened. My heart really sank when I saw news of Dr. Wang's case in the newspaper. My sympathies to you, Dr. Wang, and thank you for your courage for speaking out, because I appreciate why people may not want to speak out in this circumstance. And as you said, Dr. Wang, there is no place for hate crime in a civilized society. To commit a crime against someone in respect of a characteristic that they can't change cannot be tolerated. And that's certainly something that I believe and that the police service believe. Race hate crime is an aggravated crime, which means in Southampton that it must be reviewed by an inspector. So in terms of rank, a PC is who you'd see on the street. A sergeant would look after a group of PCs, and the inspector would look after a bigger geographic area. We pursue all lines of inquiry when it comes to race crime, and we only ever file it if it's disproportionate or if there's no evidence that will lead to a prosecution. Because if hate crime prevails in a society, then community cohesion fails. And where you lost community cohesion, then you've lost communities. So if the police become involved in a race hate crime, then my argument is always that society itself has failed to address these issues. So whilst I accept responsibility for my part and the part of the police in solving race hate crime and hate crime in general, I think as our previous speaker has indicated, this needs to start a lot sooner. So we must make this front and centre of education in our schools. We must make sure it's policy within our workplace. And then if it goes wrong, then the police will step in and prosecute where they can prosecute. Because prosecution alone is not going to change the opinions and beliefs of a society. We must stand shoulder to shoulder in solidarity right across authorities and communities to put an end to race hate and other hate crime. Now, I mentioned earlier, it takes a lot of courage to report a race hate crime. And that's why we have 30 other centres, other places that you can report race crime, in fact, hate crime too. And the Chinese Association is one of those places, and it's coordination through an organisation called Spectrum within the city. So if you've never heard of Spectrum, then please look that up, because it might be that you don't have trust or confidence in the police, which would sadden me. It might be, for example, if your crime was against your sexual orientation and you didn't want to come out, that you can report these things anonymously. Because if we have some information, whether it's a description of an offender or a place the offence took place, then we can start an investigation. We have been working with the Chinese community since the start of COVID. You'll know there was another racist attack about this time last year on a group of Chinese students, and Sergeant Eric Wong has been working with the community to try and reassure them and to nip anything in the bud. You will also know, hopefully, that in Southampton, I've invested in a community cohesion officer. Ahmed Sasso is also on this call. His work is to communicate with diverse communities, to listen to them, and to create community cohesion along with them. So again, if you have any issues around your community and its cohesion, then please speak to Ahmed. And in fact, if we have time tonight, it'd be nice to bring Ahmed in. But really, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to stand in solidarity. I wanted to denounce race, hate crime, and all hate crime. I wanted to reassure you that we are working with the communities, and that as was quite rightly said, I can't say much about this investigation other than we have arrested a suspect and we are pursuing an investigation, because it wouldn't be fair, again, in terms of a fair trial, and I wouldn't want to jeopardise the trial, but to reassure you that the case is still live. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, and perfectly timed as well. Exactly 4 minutes. I don't know if you got a tip off that was going to be the case, but no, thank you for your comments, and it's good to have you here. Our next speaker tonight is Jayanti Shah, J Shah, which people will know Jayanti, who he's been a long-time anti-racist activist at Southampton, at the forefront of very many anti-racism campaigns in the city over a long period of time, 50 years, I would have thought, at least. And he was also the recipient at the end of last year of an MBE in recognition of his campaigning work in the city. He's also one of the founders of Black History Month South, and it's a pleasure to have him on the call tonight and to address the meeting. So, Jay, over to you.
Thank you, Steve. Dr. Wang, I have got to take my hat off to you. I am an ex-student of Southampton University. I went to Southampton University in 1968, so I am old. I graduated in 71, and if I had been doing business studies, I'd probably be one of your students. So one of the problems in Southampton has always been people not coming out, not calling it out. And that's one of the reasons why, Dr. Wang, I'm proud to say you are my brother. Coming out and actually confronting the racists is the only way it can be dealt with. The racism and incidents of racism over the last 50 years in Southampton have continued and persisted, ranging from verbal abuse to violent attacks like last week. The climate of Twin Tower bombing, Twin Tower aeroplane landing on Twin Tower didn't help. And we had in Southampton incidents of kids putting brown paper hats over brown kids and taking them into the woods, because that is how they saw the reality on television. Since then, we have had number of incidents. Any brown person after that was a Taliban. You know, it was matter of course. About a few years ago, there were a couple of Chinese origin students in University of Southampton who were attacked in Swaddling. And what did they do? They disappeared to Hong Kong and reported it from Hong Kong. Suddenly, the university took some notice of it because it was in international press. So we got that situation rising all the time. Now, Brexit gave carte blanche freedom, and led by our noisemakers, politicians, etc., Brexit effectively gave the racists a license to do what they want to and what they like. Brexit, only about 2% of the British population is racist, I suspect. But, and this is the important point, those 2% after Brexit thought that 52% of the country was with them. And that is quite annoying. And now we got the coronavirus and a blatant and open attack on Chinese origin people. Now you notice how I use the word origin. We are not talking about our neighbors. We are talking about our communities. We are talking about my neighbor. I live across the river from you, Dr. Wang, but you're still my neighbor. We are talking about our neighbors, our community. And if we don't have some sort of reality and some sort of cohesion within the people, and people are judged by the color of their skin or by their appearance or their disability even, then I think we are on a losing wicket. What I would turn around and say to Dr. Wang is, you have set an example which a lot of people should take an example, is to actually publicize this type of events. A lot of people suffer in silence. They go away. They don't deal with it. They don't treat things. They just quietly suffer in silence. And I think that I go for a walk quite often to Netley Abbey, across the bridge, Itchen Bridge, to Netley Abbey. And guess what? Tomorrow I'm going for a walk at 4 o'clock. And I'm going to go over the bridge to Netley Abbey, to Western Shore, and see what happens. Yeah, part of my daily walk. That's it, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you for your comments. And we will be talking about the solidarity action that we have planned that people can take part in tomorrow. So we will be mentioning that once we've heard from all our guest speakers, but thank you again. Okay, our next speaker tonight is actually Ms. Lan Liao, who is the CEO of Pagoda Chinese Youth and Community Centre in Liverpool. She'll be reading out a message from Kim Johnson MP, who's actually Member of Parliament for Liverpool Riverside, who wanted to join us tonight at the meeting, but wasn't able to, but we will be hearing a message instead. So just, have you raised your hands so that our admin can identify you? Sorry, bear with us. I think you should have received a request to unmute. Apologies, seem to be having some technical problems at the moment. What I do while Joe, perhaps you'd be able to sort that out. We'll just move on to our next speaker, if that's okay. And our next speaker is Sue Atkins, who is the president of Southampton and South West Hampshire Trade Union Council. And like I said, I've already read out that statement from the University and College Lecturers Union. But Sue's going to talk to us a little more about the role that trade unions play in building an anti-racist society and about combating racism both in the workplace and in society more widely.
Hello, good evening. Thanks very much for inviting me. It's great to see so many people here. I think when the meeting was being organised, there were 14 people. So it's good to see nearly 300 people here. So it's obviously struck a chord, and I can see there are people from all over the country. And the comments in the chat are really encouraging and positive too. So it's good that Southampton has responded to this dreadful attack. For those of you who don't know, the Trades Council aims to bring people together, bring our unions in our community together to fight for trade union rights, but also to stand in solidarity against all division, inequality, oppression, and racism, wherever it comes from. And we base ourselves on the principles of collaboration and solidarity with those in struggle or under attack. And we are appalled at this unprovoked attack on Dr. Wang. I've lived in Woolston for 50 years and have thought it as a safe place to live and bring up my family. And I used to work at the university, so I know the important and valued contribution that the Chinese and other minority communities make to our city. But the attack on Dr. Wang is not an isolated incident, either in this city or up and down the country. Now, I've seen many changes in Woolston. It once had a thriving shopping centre, a major shipbuilding employer with Vosper Thornycroft. 6 of our pubs have closed, a post office and all the banks have closed, the closure of a school, 3 doctors' surgeries merged or closed, but most damning of all, nearly 35% of our children are growing up in poverty. And to me, it's poverty, insecure employment, the high cost of housing, the problems of getting a doctor's appointment are all exacerbated by the COVID pandemic. And when those basics are denied or under threat, then it opens the door to racist division and all the other methods that are used to divide us and maintain the privileges of a few. And Brian Richardson, I think, explained very well, the use of, the hostile environment of the present government to promote, the policies of divide and rule. So we have to say, well, what can we do to maintain community cohesion and unity between all sections of our community so that racist attacks are not tolerated and not a part of our society? Because these issues of racism, of poverty and inequality, these issues are linked. And for us as trade unionists, our trade union issues. And I believe that unity within our community can be forged by fighting for decent jobs and pay, for affordable and secure housing, and a fully funded health service and free education for all. Because this is not an isolated incident. And it was the national chair of the Police Federation who said that this is the true cost of austerity. This is the true cost of austerity that we warned of. And that is at the heart of many of the problems we face. And the COVID-19 pandemic is showing in sharp relief the effects of 10 years of austerity. And I believe we have to organise and fight for a better world where we democratically use our resources to benefit the many and not the profits of a few. A world built that is free of want and oppression. So to me, we need to look at the bigger picture and put this horrible attack, this awful attack, in its broader social context. But I'm here really today to bring a message of solidarity to Dr. Wang from all of us in the trade union movement, and of solidarity with Dr. Wang and his family, and with people suffering discrimination of any kind. And we will do anything we can to support you. So solidarity.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you for your comments. Okay, we're now going to go back to Lan Liao, and I think I have managed to find you, so just bear with me.
Yes, I think I got talking.
Hello. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Okay, sorry about that. Right, I got a message from the MP Kim Johnson from Liverpool Riverside. She apologized that she cannot attend the meeting tonight, but she wants to say, please send my apology to Southampton Chinese community, but let them know they and Dr. Wang have my full support. And she wants me to read out this message for you. I was appalled to hear of the unprovoked racist assault on Dr. Wang. This is, I believe, a direct result of the hostile environment policies pursued by this government, which has encouraged and normalized racism. I send my support and solidarity to Dr. Wang, to the Chinese community in Southampton and across the country, and pledge to continue fighting the evil of racism wherever and whenever it rises its ugly head. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And, you know, it's you know, I think it's testament to this, you know, case, isn't it? That, you know, the way that it's touched so many people, not just in Southampton, but across the country. And it's great to have the support of Kim Johnson up in Liverpool. So thank you very much for joining us tonight and for reading out that message on her behalf. Okay, our next speaker, I believe, is Victoria Ugwoeme, who is a Labour Party candidate for the council, and she's also a Southampton Stand Up to Racism activist. So Victoria, over to you.
Hello, can everyone hear me, please? Is that better now? Okay, good. Good evening, everyone. My name is Victoria, and thank you, Steve, for the brief introduction. I am talking today as a representative of the Stand Up to Racism rep. And I first of all want to say it is awful and dreadful. And if any of you have watched my previous video, I used this word. It's one thing to go through the mental torture of the abusers, and another thing than to have an assault on it. That is two blows too many. And Dr. Wang, I offer my solidarity as a resident of Southampton, as a person and representing Tuva as well. But what I'm about to say is, I want to ask questions, because I believe with questions we can get answers. And I also want to thank everyone that has spoken so well. And it just shows that we are ready to do whatever it takes to get racism out of our city and out of our society. And I want to ask this question. The system has to change, because it's not good enough to have few people talk about racism and put in efforts to change it. We need prominent people to stand behind this and say, enough is enough. We need more coverage in the media, more education on what racism actually is. Because you get some people that don't understand that their action sometimes come across as being prejudice. So education, for me, is key. And not only that, as a city, we are known for our welcome, friendliness, and above all, Southampton is known for its diversity. And to be in a diverse community, one thing that should bind us together is tolerance. I know COVID-19 hasn't helped with the outbreak being pushed down to China, but that is just no good reason for anyone to attack any Chinese resident here in Southampton or anywhere in the world. but I bring you guys back to what is racism. Is a form of discrimination against any person due to their racial background or their ethnicity. And I say, when you call people minority, when you call people Black, you are already bringing them down from being an equal human. We need to address equality as well as racism. Because when people see themselves better than another person, then racism is going to thrive. So therefore, as a city, we have to shine the light. And Dr. Wang, we are standing behind you. And the Chinese community said, enough is enough. Our young ones have faced racism taunts and words. And I want to just give you a brief story here. As an African, most times we want to say we don't want to have that talk. You wonder, what is that talk? The talk where we have to sit our kids down and say, when you go out there, expect this. When this happens, you do that. Unfortunately for myself, I have tried the best I can to shield my kids from those conversations. But when you have an 8-year-old child come out of school crying, and you ask this child, what is the matter? And they can't speak. All they do is just cry. And then you let them cry. Then you say, okay, dear, what has happened? And this child said, a child in my school called me the N-word. Mommy, what does that mean? So you see that even in our schools, we need to educate our children on what is acceptable and what isn't acceptable. This case has been dealt with by the school, which I really applaud them for. But the fact is this child has been exposed to that racial abuse, that racial name calling. While this is all good, we need to go to the root. And the root of racism, in my opinion, is this. When one class of people see themselves as superior to another. That has to end. And to everyone that has come out tonight to show solidarity, it just shows the love and the concern and the goodness that I can say is in mankind, because something good has to come out of this. And as Southampton resident, I am so proud that we are taking this, and I'm so proud for my colleagues and comrades and the Stand Up to Member team for arranging this at very short notice and bringing this wonderful online event. And we hope to see you all in March, 20th of March, when we have the UN anti-racism rally online. So please, guys, let this not be the end of this topic. If you know anyone of influence, they need to do more. And I thank Dr. Ahmed Stasser for what he has done addressing these issues in the various communities. He has been brilliant. But I think right now we need education, educating our young ones and our communities, because I believe education is key and power. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Victoria. And yeah, as there's just popped up in the chat, very powerful words. And I couldn't agree more with what you said about the need, not just to talk about these issues, but the need for action as well. And I think actually that's a really good point at which we want to talk about the action that we're proposing in order to allow people to show solidarity with Dr. Wang. So as you know, I think it's been referred to by other speakers as well, we're living in quite straitened circumstances at the moment. I think, in ordinary times, we would have sought to call a solidarity vigil or a solidarity march to allow people to make a collective response, to come together, to demonstrate their solidarity and to stand up to racism as united as a community. Unfortunately, we're not in those circumstances at the moment. We all know and understand why that is. But nevertheless, we have had an idea that's actually come from the running community. So as you know, Dr. Wang was out jogging at the time, and there was a local group in Southampton called Run Talk Run that exists to give peer-to-peer support for people with to discuss their mental health issues. And one of the leaders of that group has made a really good suggestion, which I think is something that we can use, and it can be a way that people can demonstrate their solidarity with Dr. Wang and their opposition to racism. So what I'm going to try and do now is share my screen and then just highlight some actions that I would like everybody to take part in tomorrow if they can. Okay, so hopefully you can see that now. Okay. Okay. So the idea that has been proposed, and the one that has been supported by Stand Up to Racism Southampton and by the Chinese Association of Southampton, is that we organise a virtual run or walk for Dr. Wang. So this is a way that people can, like I said, demonstrate their solidarity with Dr. Wang, but they can stay safe at the same time while doing it. So what we're asking people to do is tomorrow, which is 1 week on from when Dr. Wang was attacked in Woolston. If you can do it at some time in the afternoon between 3:30 and 4:30, so much the better. But if you can't, you can't, you need to fit it around your life and your other commitments. But if possible, tomorrow, Tuesday, the 2nd of March, we're asking people to take their exercise. It's one of the few things that people can do at the moment in accordance with the lockdown restrictions. Take their exercise tomorrow. We're asking people to wear red because it's a culturally significant colour for the Chinese culture. So we're asking people to wear red. We're asking them to take a selfie of themselves wearing red whilst they're out on their run or their walk. And if they can, to include a printed or a homemade placard bearing the words, something along the lines with solidarity with Dr. Wang, stand up to racism, racist not welcome. Obviously, if it's homemade, it's up to you. We've also provided a printed placard on our Facebook page that people will be able to download there. When you've done that, and this is the really important part, because without this, it won't be a collective action. Once you've done that, we'd like you to post your selfie to Facebook or Instagram using the hashtag Dr. Wang. Okay, and if you know how to do this, it would be great if you could tag Southampton Stand Up to Racism in your post using those tags at the bottom there. So they're slightly different for Facebook and Instagram. Those last 2 points are really important, because if you don't do those things, it won't make it a collective action. We need you to post your selfie on social media using the hashtag and to tag us in if possible. And then what we will do is collate all of those pictures, and we will then approach traditional news media outlets such as the Daily Echo, the BBC, the ITV, and we'll ask them to use those pictures as a demonstration of the collective response and the collective opposition to racism in this city. So I'll leave that on the screen for just another 5 seconds or so that people can either take a picture of it or they can take a screenshot of it. But that is what we're asking people to do tomorrow. And I think if we all did that, everybody on this call did that, we've got 300 people on this call, if we asked people that we knew to do that as well, and they all sent in pictures, that would be a really, really strong action and a really strong message to send, that we are standing united against racism and we are standing in solidarity with Dr. Wang. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing now. I'll also perhaps try and post that into the chat as well so that people have that. Okay, thank you again to our guest speakers. We now have an opportunity to hear speakers from the floor. And like I said, it would be really good to hear people's experiences, both if they've had direct experience of racism in Southampton or elsewhere. We also want to hear from people about fighting back against racism. We want to hear some ideas about how we can come together collectively to oppose racism. So if you'd like to talk, please raise your hand. and I will call you, and Joe will unmute you. Okay. So could I start with Wai Lam, and Wai, could I just ask you to just keep your comments, and everybody in this section of the meeting, to try and keep your comments to around about 2 minutes, just so we get as many people able to contribute as possible.
Hello, thank you. Yeah, this is James Lam, also known as Wai. I'm from the Hadley Chinese Community Services. The Chinese and East and Southeast Asian community has organized throughout the last year in response to the racist attack, and I have seen the organization of the community in a couple of months ago, when a Liverpool student was attacked in the city center. But when he defended himself, he was being charged by the police, and the community has mobilized and to defend the student, Mr. Ma. And Mr. Ma, in the end, was found not guilty, and that triggered the police in Liverpool and the CPS to review their guidance of secondary victimization. And as a result of that, a group, the campaign group, have now formed itself into the campaign against secondary victimization, which is an experience the Chinese community have experienced for many years. When they were victim of race crime, very often their report were unheard and not dealt with. But when they were forced to defend themselves, very often they fell through to the system and being charged. And we have now, I think earlier my colleague Vicky had put on the chat that we have now start a survey asking people of their experience about racial attack. We want to build a database on the community's experience on the racial attack as a result of the COVID. We know that there has been a very huge underreporting of this problem. We call upon everyone here to join us and report on the database, so we can build a national figure, a national picture, and to guide us on our future action. This is the beginning of the East and Southeast Asian community working on together in combating racism. We must form alliance with our Black and Asian community, which before us has led the way and show us the courage and the experience. And we have a lot to learn from our Black and Asian communities. Brother and sister, that we have the Chinese and East and Southeast Asian communities has benefited from their struggle in the past, and it's time for us to take the lead and fight alongside them. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, that's really positive comments, and it sounds like you're engaged in some really positive work there. Thank you for being on the call tonight and for your comments. Okay, our next quite some time is Dalia Al-Manstrali. Are you able to unmute, Dalia, Joe? Sorry, just bear with me. Sorry, I think we might have to come back to Dalia. Could I please take Tony Bunday next? Tony is one of the candidates for the Police and Crime Commissioner elections later on in this year. So Tony.
Good evening, Steve. Thank you. I'd like to add my thoughts and expressions of horror, really, to Dr. Peng and what has happened to him. I was truly shocked when I read about it, and I'm glad Dr. Peng, that you feel that you're not badly hurt, but it was quite alarming to see pictures of you after the incident later last week. I think it's a very serious thing that's happened, and I'm so encouraged by the serious way that the superintendent is taking these matters. It is rightly seen as the racially motivated nature of this, which it clearly is rightly seen as a very aggravating feature, and that's actually an important status in law now, which can result in more severe sentencing. And I do hope that these people are caught and the courts get the chance to talk to people. I think it's all decent, right-minded people must be horrified by this and condemn it. And I'd like to reflect many of the things that have been said in that we need to eradicate this from society, and we need to not only a bottom-up approach in terms of education at an early age and throughout all society, but also there is such responsibility on community leaders and politicians, whether you're standing for a council or a police and crime commissioner, or to be an MP, or to much higher office, policemen, prime ministers, and even home secretaries. I was particularly horrified that we had a home secretary that talked about a hostile environment to minority groups and set about driving roughshod over people's rights that we hadn't seen in Western Europe since the 30s and 40s. And after that, she was able to prosper within her organisation and still become Prime Minister. And actually, I find that deeply worrying. So I call on all leaders to stand up and be counted, as I hope I always have been. I will certainly make a commitment to always doing so in my everyday life and in my efforts to become your Police and Crime Commissioner. So thank you, Dr. Penn, for being so brave and allowing this to happen. I'm deeply encouraged by the fact that nearly 300 people have attended tonight from such a short time span, and there feels like quite a bit of power as part of this, and I think it's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, our next speaker is going to be Pek Santan.
Hi, Steve. Thank you so much for calling me to speak. On behalf of, sorry, I'm just trying to get my child out of this video. On behalf of the COVID-19 anti-racism group, I want to thank all the speakers and especially Dr. Wang Peng for actually speaking up, because it is a very tough thing to actually openly talk about being victimized. And I agree with Tony. When I saw the article and I saw the photographs, I was really horrified, and I'm glad he has also said that he hasn't suffered too much physically, but actually the photographs of those images were increased, very, very shocking. And going back on when you invited me to speak to discuss what can be done, one of the things which Jabe has already mentioned, that the community got together and supported the victim in Liverpool. But the other thing that we've done in London, which I don't know is reflected in your constabulary in Hampshire, in Southampton, was at the beginning of COVID, when all the hate crimes had actually started rising and had got to that 300% sort of figure by March, we had got together as a community, and it was led by the police, and the Mets themselves had started a community engagement call with our community. And that was across Pan-London, across all the different Southeast Asian community groups. They have an actual Chinese East and Southeast Asian Staff Association that did outreach work as well, that did a keep in contact with community leaders and as well as community groups. And I don't know if that's something which can in the immediate reassure the community in Southampton, especially as I have fond memories of Southampton. My cousins studied there, and it is a diverse and very welcoming city. So actually the stories coming out from it just don't marry up in my mind of your city. So I hope maybe some of the learning from what's happening in other cities may be helpful to where you are. And CARG, obviously we set up as a result of being called together to these meetings. So 7 of us co-founded it, and we actually have a petition out that, that we were going to petition to write a letter to Boris Johnson, which has already been done, but I shared it in the chat in case people still want to sign to it, just to show numbers that we want our government to actually call this out, to do it properly, and to actually stand against these horrific attacks across the country, because it's not isolated, it's not one case, it is up and down the country. And that's what I find the most unacceptable, that even in the silence of it and the shocking cases which, Michael has to deal with the case last year with the students in Southampton University were being chased into their university halls, the fact that we haven't got a resolution to that yet still takes me by surprise and by shock, to be fair. And I'm sure it does for any right-minded person on this call and not on this conference. So CARG is happy to support all the work that you're all doing, but also to be open to ideas to bringing change in your city and across the country.
Thank you so much, Peng. And like you said, you've posted up the details there in the chat, and perhaps as well, if you want to provide your email address so that people could get in touch with you and then continue that conversation and pick up some of the ideas that you mentioned in your comments, that would be really useful. Okay. Our next speaker, I'd like to call Andy Liao, who is the Vice Chair of the Chinese Association of Southampton. So Andy, great to have you here.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Dr. Wang, thank you very much. Join our association, and I'm pretty sure you'll recover well now, because you're a strong man, and I really appreciate you very bravely to come up to report it. And I'm glad to see so many familiar faces. Mr. Lam, you just have a talk. We worked together for a case over 20 years ago when I was in the police. And I have a disclaimer. I used to be in the Hampshire police, and my last role is patrolling Southampton area. And I know the city a little bit. I've been living, I don't live in Southampton, but cut the long story short, this case, I have some observation from the Daily Echo Facebook, who reported this case on their newspaper. We have 101 comments. I tell you what, all of them are positive and supportive to our poor victim here. And that struck me, because normally when you see comments on Facebook, they are very nasty, they are very negative, but this one, no. Also, you look at the participant today, I counted, this is my police nature, I always look at the numbers. The maximum number is 288. Now it's down to 233 because people may have something to do. But we are not just Chinese. If it's only Chinese people getting around, oh yeah, sorry, you are very unlucky, and it's nothing. But now you look at people from different communities all over the country. This morning, I did forward a message from another scholar in Hong Kong who read the news in the other side of the world. I didn't tell her, but she come to me and say, Andy, what's going on? I told her about what happened, and she sent a message to Dr. Wang, and I forwarded to him. My final word is, Southampton is not that bad. It's bad enough now. When the whole country, I gather, I'm not negative, I gather this sort of antisocial behavior, hate crime, hate incident will continue. But I urge the commander here, Kelly, I think, is we work together. We worked together in 1995 and long time ago. And this particular case, I don't want to make bringing people say, okay, police didn't do well or council didn't do well. But my urge, I want a little thing more. If it's a very sensitive case like this, sometimes you should have a very strong message from the authority, local council, or even the police. Tell the general member public or tell everyone, do not do it. If you do it, we'll come to catch you. That is the message we have to pass it on to everybody. Yeah, if I'm good, okay. If I'm a bit of a, I have a potential to commit that sort of crime, they will have a bit of a warning. That is the final word I want to say. And thank you for the organizer, and thank you for the whole communities in this world. I remember very well we are in a big society. Thank you, Steve. You take care, Dr. Wang.
Thank you, Andy. And yeah, like you said, we are, it is a whole community, isn't it? And it's about that unity, because it's that unity over division, and that's the way that we are going to defeat racism when we come together and campaign together and challenge racism wherever it rears its ugly head. So thank you, Andy, for your comments. Okay, we have got a couple more people who are indicating to speak. We have got time to take them. So I'm going to call Sumin next. Joe, you're able to, I think you're unmuted. Sumin, if you want to start talking. Sumin, can you hear us? Okay, I think we'll have to come back to Sumin in that case. Can I take the Monkey King next? That's not something I thought I'd hear myself saying in a meeting of this nature.
Hi.
Oh, there, yeah, we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay. Sorry, I think it's my son. When he has his class Zoom meeting, he changed my Zoom meeting into Monkey King, and I don't know how to change it back. I'm really apology about it. I just a very quick word. I just want to say, I would like to say thank you to all of you. I'm really appreciate that I found out more than 75% people here are no Chinese race and in this Zoom meeting today. And I just want to say thank you. You are all good people, and God bless you. And second, what I want to say is Dr. Wang is not the first one, and he will not be the last one, because this kind of thing is keep happening all the time. But not a lot of police people or authorities care about this case. And this kind of things is happening all the time. And I just want to give you a quick short story myself. And just not long ago, when I come out to Chinese embassy, I got two young people through the acid out of my face. And I've been sent to the ambulance straight away to the hospitals in that night. And I was staying in the pen and for hours. And luckily, I'm survived. Like the doctor says, I could be died. And the police was saying I was lucky, which are still alive. But, all my hair, my clothes, everything was burned. My hand I'm still suffering today. And after I called the police back, I asked what's going on, and nobody come back to me. My wallet, my jacket, my everything was being taken away in that cold night. But until nowadays, I sent the email, but nobody come back to us. And from the Chinese Landlord Association, we've been seeing all these kind of cases all the time. what I want to say is Chinese nation is very quiet community. We are not like going to complaints or doing, you know, racings or going to the street saying Chinese life matters. And because this is just our nature, we are a very kind nation. We never want to fair fight with anyone. And this is not just about Chinese, it's about all different colors of people. And we shouldn't let it end it quietly. As you know, any one of us could be the next one. Like that lady said, enough is enough. We need some action. We need to actually rather just, you know, tell people online we should, I mean, it's coronavirus situation. We should do something, at least let people know this matters. We need to do something about it. We cannot take this anymore. And I am really glad all these people, I see all these communities, all these powerful authorities, all these good people here. And I really love what you did today. And I just want to say thank you. And I hope anyone who is clever enough can lead us and make some action about it. And however, as Chinese Landlord Association, who have 3,000 members, we support on whatever we can, you know, on financial side, on whatever side, we support you. Thank you.
Thank you. And, you know, thank you for sharing your story. That couldn't have been easy, and that, you know, absolutely horrific, but I'm glad that you did share it. Thank you for speaking up, and thank you for your comments. And yeah, well, that's what we need, isn't it? That we need action against racism, and that's, like I said, it's difficult times at the moment, you know, to come together collectively, but we're doing what we can to build a collective response to these kinds of incidents. But thank you again for your comments in the meeting tonight. Okay, please could we unmute Lan Liao next?
Hi, thank you for letting me make some comment. I just reading on the chat mentioned about the BBC media doing a lot of anti-Chinese report. And I have the same feeling myself, and I actually talking to our local authorities, trying to speak to them to find a way how we can do some good media exposure of the Chinese community in England, and trying to counterpart those negative image for the people, and also to highlight the communities have been integrated in England for a long time, and they can't just sort of like really targeting the Chinese community because they're hearing what they heard on the news. So I think we probably, if we are able to talk to our local authorities, people, media, marketing people, okay, freedom of speech, they cannot interfere what the BBC going to make the news, what they want to talk, but we should voice our voice as well quite loudly to let people know what they're doing is not doing the Chinese community any favor.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments there. Next speaker is Bill Acharji.
Oh, hello, can you hear me?
You can, Bill. Oh, yeah.
Okay, great. I just wanted to say, firstly, thank you to everyone. It's really overwhelming to see the support for what's happened to Dr. Wang. And secondly, say thank you to Dr. Wang, because he did the first thing by speaking out what happened to him. You know, as ethnic minorities in this country, this, you know, I think lots of speakers have said, this isn't the first time and it's not going to be the last time. So what I want is people to carry on these conversations. You know, don't wait for someone to die or for someone to be attacked. Let's have these conversations every day, every week. And I would urge everyone to join up with the Southampton branch of Stand Up to Racism. Steve does a great job. When I met Steve about 3 years ago, it was just so supportive knowing that this organisation existed in my local city. So I'd urge everyone to join up. And secondly, racism, it happens everywhere. It happens when we walk out of our front door. It happens when we go to school. It happens when we go into the workplace. So I would ask and urge everyone as well, if you see it, call it out. If you see someone saying something indirectly or directly, please support your brothers and your sisters. We need your help. We need allies. You know, our voices by ourselves means nothing. If we can have support from allies, then that would be very, very welcome. But I'm really happy to see so many people here today to support this cause. And yeah, Dr. Wang, we're all thinking about you and we're all behind you. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Bill. Thanks for your comments there. And yeah, absolutely, you know, call it out whenever you see it. You know, you couldn't be more right, you know, and it's incumbent upon us all to do that, you know, and we all see it, we know it happens, we know it goes on, you know, and it might not be blatant, you know, but we know, and we all know, and then when you've got a question mark in your head, you know, that's the time, you know, when you need to question it, you need to challenge, you know, and it's only, you know, it's only through that challenge that we're ultimately gonna, like I say, you know, get rid of racism. Okay, so I think we've got time for one last speaker. So Mark Nam from Bristol Diocese.
Yeah, good. Yeah, thank you. Good evening. And first of all, Dr. Wang, just want to say how distraught my family and I were to read about what happened, and our thoughts and prayers are with you. I work for the Diocese of Bristol. I'm also on the Anglican minority ethnic network for the Church of England, and also the founder of the Tea Room, which is a group of Anglican clergy, all with Chinese heritage, and we've all been following along with this. And I think it was yesterday the Church of England announced from the Anti-Racism Task Force that they'll be setting up their commission for the next 5 years. So it's the plan for the remit of what's going to be covered by the Church of England in terms of combating racism in our country. And Dr. Wang, I want to thank you sincerely for speaking up, because it is voices and stories like yours that enable people like myself and the other members of the Tea Room to go towards, you know, the Church of England and the task force to encourage them to include East Asians and Southeast Asians in their plans and deliberations for the future. So just as Bill shared earlier on, it is so important that those of us who experience racism speak out, share our stories, and stand in solidarity with others, because it's only then that we can work together, raise awareness, so that institutions like the Church can also mobilize properly and tackle this. And again, it is our hope and desire to work with other faith groups in doing this. This is a whole community thing. So thank you for your bravery.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you for bringing your solidarity tonight from Bristol. Yeah, great to have you on the call. Thank you so much. Okay, I think that's all we've got time for in terms of speakers. I do want to, before I kind of make some closing remarks and some just highlighting some actions, I do want to give Dr. Wang the opportunity to come back. We haven't got time to bring everybody, all of the guest speakers back, but Dr. Wang, if you wanted to come back and make any comments, then please do feel free to do so.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you very much for everyone. I would say I'm very moved, and I feel even much stronger because of your message, and also because of this meeting. I would say it's definitely, you know, I pretty understand, right? So especially for media such as BBC and also US media, they just they hardly report any good news on Chinese, right? So now they accuse Chinese government, for Xinjiang or Tibet, this re-education, camp stuff, okay, which is totally untrue. I would say that, you know, that is the, I would say that we basically we are not able to change that. So it's you know, it's start from the central government. So as an individual, we have to be, you know, we have to fight for ourselves, you know, to stop the racism. Because why? Because I would say that's because China, you know, China is a rising power. So it's possible because the power of China is rising, you know, and also affect the dominance of the US, right? So they just, you know, they cannot by nature report any good things on China. So I would say it's unfortunate, but as individuals, I would urge everyone, right? So to just, you know, to stop any racism, any racist activities at the spot immediately, right? And report, because, you know, I believe it's a very, very good time to report racism, because of the powerful telephone, because of the 4G, the 5G network. You can just take photo, record video. I believe people will be known. So that is what we want to say. So first we go against racism. And if we go against enough, then I would say things can change. Otherwise, we cannot ask, you know, the central government to change. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Dr. Wang. Okay, I think Dr. Wang will be our last speaker. But I do want to just make some closing remarks and some notices. I think it's been a fantastic meeting. I think there's been a real sense of unity in the face of racism, and that's exactly what we need. You know, we've had numerous reports from people this evening who've described, you know, racism in many different forms. You know, whether that's scapegoating minorities, whether that's the institutional racism that goes on, whether that's the hostile environment that is initiated by Theresa May, or whether that's, you know, like I said, the scapegoating of refugees and migrants. All of these issues are intimately related, and we need to bring them all together and oppose them, you know, in a united way. And that is, as Brian said in his talk at the start of the meeting, you know, what we hope to do on March the 20th. March the 20th is UN Anti-Racism Day, or it's the Saturday that's closest to UN Anti-Racism Day. Again, because of the current restrictions, we can't have a large demonstration that we would usually do, but we are going to be hosting an online event in Southampton. We've got a whole range of speakers and artists and young people who have made contributions, talking about their experiences. And it looks like it's going to be both a celebratory event that celebrates the diversity and multiculturalism of Southampton, but also a serious one, and that talks about how we can take forward the anti-racist struggle locally. So I do encourage people to join us for that. The details will be up on our Facebook page very shortly, as will the details of our action tomorrow. So I have posted them in the details into the chat. And hopefully you will all have had the chance to make a copy of that. You can, I only learned this myself recently, it is possible for people to take a copy of the chat. So if you open up the chat, and then you can see there's just to the right where it says file, there's a little 3 dots. And then it says, if you click on those, you get an option to save the chat, and that will save it. It's not a very user-friendly format, but it will save it to your as a file to your computer. And you will then be able to go back and look at both the messages of support, solidarity, and also the details of our action that we've got planned for tomorrow. We'll also be posting up details, as I said, on Facebook later this evening. So do check that, and also the Chinese Association of Southampton, their Facebook page details will go up. I'd like to thank once again our guest speakers tonight. Thank you for joining them, and thank you to everybody who's taken part in this meeting. I think it has been a really strong show of solidarity for Dr. Wang, but also a really strong show of determination to not stand for the kind of racism that we saw last week, stand against racist attacks, and to continue to challenge it wherever we see it. So thank you once again, everybody. I think, we all need to keep, continue to stay in touch. This meeting's been built through the various networks that exist, and I would encourage everybody to stay in touch and to continue to work together to fight against racism. And thank you all so much for coming tonight.
Thank you, Steve.